All right, so my name is Carrie Bellion, and I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself in just a little bit. But today we're going to talk about support, and we broke down the word support to have it stand for strong, understanding parents that are providing options and resources as a team. And we're doing that through our Guide by Your Side program. Oh, sorry, I didn't change the date, guys. Sorry about that. So we're going to go ahead and introduce ourselves to you. My name is Carrie Bellion, and I'm the coordinator of the Illinois Guide by Your Side program. They're on the left-hand side as me and my crew. I have them ranging from 2 to 18, and my 18-year-old is the one with hearing loss. So that is where I'm at. And then Lydia, if you go ahead and share about yourself there.
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Lydia Hernandez, and I have been a parent guide for just about 5 years now. You see my crew there on the right. I have 4 girls, and they range from 2 to 16. And my 12-year-old, which is the one in the white dress sitting next to me, is the one that has hearing loss.
Hold on, sorry, Lydia. There we go.
You're fine. So this is just a quick overview of what we will be discussing during our presentation. And let's see, so why do parents need support? We will be discussing a little bit more about our program, which is Guide by Your Side. What is Hands and Voices? The benefits of parent-to-parent support, as well as some of the roadblocks that we come across, and what we've learned.
So why do parents need support? And I can tell you from my experience that even with an 18-year-old, we are still learning and growing as a family, and in my role of a parent of a child with hearing loss, or a parent of a young adult, I guess. And along the way, we've had different questions at different stages. We've, of course, have had that question of, is it hearing loss or is it them being a teenager? And it's really great to have other people to connect to and have them as a resource and share with what they've learned from them being on their journey. And we'll dive a little bit more into this in a bit.
So why is support so important? This brings confidence to families. We bring them resources and information, and in return, they are able to make connections, and not just with other families that are going through the same journey, but they can make connections to other organizations or professionals.
So what is Guide by Your Side? As you can see there by the logo that we have, our logo is multiple hands. And then inside that little snail piece, that's a cochlea, which is a part of the ear there that's very important for the hearing part. And so the multiple hands for Guide by Your Side is just representation of a parent, a child, and their guide working together to lead that family to success and to feel like they're prepared and can still function as a family and not have hearing loss be a hindrance or a concern or something that is a roadblock for them. And so for us, our Guide by Your Side program started up back in May of 2009 in our state. We were one of probably the first 10 programs in the U.S., the very first one being the Wisconsin Guide by Your Side program, where it actually originated, and then was adapted, taken over and adapted by the national program in Colorado. So for us in Illinois, we've been up and running since for quite a while now, getting close to celebrating our 10th year, and we're very excited about that. And with that, we have obviously experience. We've built many connections within the state. We're very aware of resources. We try to participate in as many organizations and boards as we can, so that we have a feel for what's going on, what is out there, what might be changing, so that we can bring that to our families. And so Lydia here is going to go a little bit deeper into who we are.
So who are we? Guided by Your Side is a program designed to assist families who have children with hearing loss. We offer emotional support to families, and we provide specialized knowledge and resources. So again, it's just going back to us having the access to the resources that these families may not be aware that exist and are out there. Our goal, the mission is, again, providing unbiased emotional support and resources by trained parent guides to families with children who have a hearing loss. And we serve Illinois families with children who have a hearing loss up to the age of 21, with our primary focus of the age being up to 6. And again, this isn't something that we our intention of our primary focus being up to age 6, but it just kind of works out that way. Obviously, when you're first starting through your journey, you have a lot more questions. It's brand new. And then little by little, we give the families we're able to empower them to take control. And as they get older, they may need a little bit less of our services. So again, what we do, we provide free one-on-one support and resources to families. We provide free online training for families. We'll do webinars with various topics, and a lot of the times families can't assist live. So we have links to these webinars so that they can get back to it and maybe look at the topics that interest them and sit down and actually go through the training or the webinar on their own time. We also provide free family education and outreach events. So these are fun events that we provide for families to get together, to mingle, be able to have the children hang out and play, and also have the parents be able to talk and just catch up, and just to provide a safe space for families to be able to feel comfortable and talk. And we also have our EARS newsletter, which provides a ton of great information. We put flyers in there. We have great stories from different families, their kiddos, or sometimes even our own stories as guides on our families. And there's information on different events going on, not just through our organization, but many others. And we have the newsletter in both English and Spanish for families.
Yeah, and just before I move on to the next slide, we are actually in the process of planning a couple of our family education events for the fall. So it looks like we've got 3 in the works and getting finalized, and those flyers will be released soon. And they will also be in our Illinois EARS newsletter, and EARS stands for Events and Resources Statewide. If you do not receive emails from us or that newsletter, please feel free to email me your contact information. I can double check and make sure that it is in our email database, and my contact information will be at the end of this presentation. So currently on our team, there's myself as the program coordinator and 9 parent guides. We do have some specialties within our team. For example, we have a parent guide who is deaf. We have Lydia, who is our Spanish-speaking guide, and then we have guides who have children who are deaf but also have additional needs, whether that's ADHD or vision issues or so forth. And then on top of that, we really strive to embrace the differences. And with that, our team varies in the communication choices, the amplification choices, the educational placements, the types of hearing loss, the degrees of hearing loss, the ages or stages at which they were identified. So we really do have a nice rounded team, which helps us learn from each other and then be a better guide for the families that we work with. So when we started up Guide by Your Side in the state years ago, we had to look at, okay, how are we going to break this down? And so we chose to create regions. And as you can see, as we span out in the state, the regions get a little bit bigger, but that's also because the population isn't as condensed as like the Cook County area. So therefore, you're going to have less identified families in those areas as well. And so when we created these regions, we did our best to do them where we wouldn't be overlapping with early intervention offices or DSCC offices and such, so that we wouldn't have issues with that guide connecting with that office, or having more than one guide trying to connect with that one office and then confusing that location. So that's the rhyme and reason for the crazy outlines. But our guides are spread throughout this. Now, just because we have a guide in one county doesn't mean that they might not work with a family outside of that county. It really just depends on how that conversation between that family and I goes when they're enrolling, and what their needs are, and who I feel might be a better match. So how do you refer a family? Well, there's a couple different ways. You can have the family sign a release of information. Your organization might require that, and then you can contact me with the family's information. You can give them our brochure, and they can fill that out and mail that in. Sometimes providers have worked with the family right there on the spot. The family's filled it out, and the providers mailed it in. You can also go to our website. Again, you know what your company allows or what your organization allows, but we do have on our Illinois Hands of Voices website a data entry area on the bottom of the Guide by Your Side tab, where you just enter in the name of the family and their contact information, and it gets sent to me and only me, and then I go ahead and reach out to the family. Or the family can call or email me directly and ask to be enrolled. I do find that many families prefer, and we find more success if the contact information is given to me and then I reach out to the family. I think families are just overwhelmed and busy, and they forget who does what, and sometimes can only handle so much. So not that they don't have intentions of wanting help or support, it's, you know, they only can handle so much at one point. So for you folks that are maybe a little more visual, to give you an idea of the process here, the referral comes to me as the program coordinator. I go ahead and do an intake form with the family to try to figure out what their needs are, where they're at, and then go ahead and connect them with the parent guide. They work with the parent guide one-on-one, typically for an average of about 6 months. And then when the parent guide and family decide that it is time to close the family's file, that they are happy with the support that they've received and feel like they are good to go, then the parent guide lets me know, and I go ahead and close that family's file and send them a exit survey. So that's kind of the process there. So typically what we want to do is we want to make sure that the family doesn't feel like they're, after 6 months or when they leave the program, that they are off on their own with no support or no connections. What we really encourage them to do is to participate in our Hands of Voices program here in the state, so they can continue to stay up to date on what's happening, what events are out there, and new news. And this way they can still feel connected and have their families participate in those opportunities. So just a little recap here of what our program offers. We provide one-on-one support from our trained parent guides. That support is free. We also provide events. We provide as much support as we can in their language. We do have a guide who is deaf, and so with that, sometimes families, being that most families come to us and their parents are hearing, they have no experience themselves living with hearing loss. And so what we have the opportunity here with our parent guide who is deaf, she is able to basically be an extra component to that matching. So for instance, if I match a family with our parent guide, Jacqueline, and she's working with a family and the family wants to ask questions about living with a hearing loss, like how do you wake up in the morning or whatnot, or how do you handle going for a job interview, or how do you handle sleeping over at a friend's house. Now she can give her personal advice of what she has done with her child, but she can also say, you know what, if you would like to ask that of our parent guide who's deaf and is living with a hearing loss, we can bring her in on a conversation and answer any questions that you might have. And so we have that capability there. And then being that they're all in that conversation, our parent guide who is not deaf is able to learn from that experience and also have that information for the future. And like I shared before, we all have varied experiences. Oh, sorry, guys. We all have varied experiences about what we've had and what we have lived through, what we're going up against, and we're able to share that with our families. And in the end, our goal is to empower those families so that they can feel like they got it. They can handle that situation. They can tackle that IAP and not go in there, on the defense, but more as feeling like they're a partner and they have all the tools that they need to successfully handle that that meeting. So Hands and Voices, as you can see, a little bit different from the Guide by Your Side logo, just being the one hand. It's more of a group effort there. And their motto is, what works for your child is what makes the choice right. And we truly believe that. Just because what we have done in the beginning doesn't mean that that's going to work for every other family. We've changed our communication modes. We've changed our schooling modes. I mean, we've had a little bit of everything. Now, I'm not saying that every other family needs to do that. It's just what has worked for us at that time. And that really is what we share with families. Don't feel pressure that the decision that you're making right now is what you have to do forever and ever. That car that we buy today, we're not going to have for the next 50 years. Things change, our needs change, and it's the same thing. So Andrea Marwa is our chairperson of our Illinois Hands and Voices chapter. Here's her contact information. We are linked to Hands and Voices National. We provide social group opportunities for families. So we hold a couple family events ourselves as Guide by Your Side, but really Hands and Voices, they host many more opportunities. They also, the national program provides a quarterly newsletter called Communicator, in which our state distributes to those that are members of our Illinois Hands and Voices program. So those memberships are available to families and professionals and are on the website. And, we host fundraisers throughout the year, a little bit of everything. We've had families who were anxious or looking for an event in their area, and they said, I'll host the event, can you help me with that? And we were certainly able to do that. So especially like I shared earlier, as we spread out in the state, it gets a little bit harder to make those connections and for those families to have events to attend.
So what are the benefits of parent-to-parent support? Again, it's just everyday experience. So, we go through our journeys. Us as guides, we know how it is at the beginning. We know we may not know it all, but at least we can discuss if families ask, our everyday experiences. We get to hear from other families' everyday experiences. By doing so, this creates a sense of community amongst our program, and families realize that they're not alone. There are other families that are going through similar or the same situations, and that you will encounter, different situations. Again, it's whatever works best for your family. But this builds a trust. It builds a trust between the families and the guides. It builds a trust between everyone, professionals, the organizations, and it creates a safe place for families to be able to turn to us and ask for resources, and empowering them, like Carrie mentioned, to be able to advocate for themselves and take control of the situations.
So sometimes we experience roadblocks in our support, and those can be a couple different things. Like I mentioned earlier, families are busy. It's not that they don't want the support, but they just have a lot on their plate. So that can be overwhelming in itself. Maybe that child has additional needs aside from the hearing loss. Maybe the family's in denial. I had spoken to a family recently who, here it is, the child just turned 3 and they're finally ready and they've missed the opportunity for hearing aids. And, they didn't know that cutoff time. They weren't ready. But they're ready now and they're moving forward, and that's what's important.
And language barriers have a lot to do with this as well. Sometimes the translation, it isn't the same to have a translator there next to you as having someone that speaks your language and having that connection, offering that true one-on-one support that the family needs. And not just hearing it from someone that's standing beside you and not really understanding the true sense of the situation. Cultural impression is also, a has a big impact on families, Spanish-speaking families. In my case, sometimes it's very hard to say deal with an older generation, or just the culture can be different. Sometimes I get families that say, well, it may, my child seems fine. Or I heard, from a grandparent or from a family member that he or she can hear and I don't need to, do anything. My child will learn eventually. So you do come across these roadblocks where culturally it may not be accepted. So that's where we kind of, just again, step in and offer the resources, kind of show what's out there. And so they become aware for these support services. A lot of the times, again, because of them not understanding the language, it's difficult for families to get out there and want to find out more information, or even realize that there are services that they can turn to, and just know that they're not alone, and know how to approach the situation and how to go through their journey. So it really makes a big difference to have the different types of guides, whether it's a deaf guide, Spanish speaking guide, and just to have them throughout the state, because it truly helps when you come across some of these roadblocks. So this is kind of a universal quote, I would say, for mothers. I'll just read it. Being a mother is learning about strength you didn't know you had, and dealing with fears you didn't know existed.
Yeah, and I can say too that many times when I'm talking with a family during the intake process, and I ask them, I said, well, is there any questions that you have or things that you're looking for more information on that I can give the parent guide a heads up? And 90% of the time there's silence, and they're like, I don't know. I don't know what I don't know is essentially what they're thinking and feeling, and saying back to me. And I said, I totally get it. I feel that way sometimes still. And that's the whole point of us being here to support you. So here in the American Journal of Audiology, there was an article published from Sheila Moody, and she had stated that 15 research articles done in the last 15 years cite that it's important having parents provide support to other parents, and just that overall support contributes to the overall family's well-being. And those that have access to parent support are able to promote social and emotional well-being for those families. And those really truly make the difference to what the family is able to do down the line and the success of that family. This here, and I don't know if you guys have ever seen support bubbles that have been out, but this is the latest model, and it really goes to show that from that supporting parent to the learning parent, and the supporting parent kind of has all their categories and they're well organized, but that learning parent can fluctuate between one category and the next with that learning process and how it assists the family and gets the family through. And I am sorry that it's a little blurry. You do the best that you can with the JPEG that you're given. But if you haven't seen this, I'd be happy to share it. It's really a great tool of showing what that family could potentially need and how it builds the well-being, knowledge, and empowerment of that family.
So as parents, it's never too early or too late to get or need support. Don't assume we are okay. I would rather know I have choices than to feel alone. I may not hear you the first time. Revisit the offer. So again, it goes to, when a child is first identified as parents, you may not know, this is completely new. You may feel bombarded with, whether you have to make, this appointment, now you have to go here, now you have to go there. You're getting calls from professionals, from doctors, from therapists. So, it does get crazy, and sometimes a parent may not reach out to us right away. I've had many instances where it takes quite some time to complete an intake, to get a hold of the family, or simply to get the family to reach out and contact me. But we know that life gets crazy, and we know that, between doctor's appointments and just everyday life, it gets hard. And what we try to do is let the families know that we're here. So whether they have a question for us right then and there, like Carrie mentioned, great. But if not, sometimes I'll tell my families, well, if you think of anything else at all, just write them down. And maybe the next time I check in, you have your list ready and let me know. Or if you have a question, just feel free to give me a call, email me, text me. We try to make it as easy as possible for the family to get a hold of us, because we do know that as parents, it gets pretty busy and crazy, and sometimes we get overwhelmed. But again, we know that we want the families to know that we are here regardless, whether they want to talk to us now, maybe close out, and come back to us a few months later. We're okay with that.
Yeah, and I would go, I think my biggest one on this one is don't assume that we are okay. Don't peg the family as that family that looks put together, so they probably already have, they don't need support or whatnot. Or maybe the family that's falling apart that you're like, okay, they need support, but maybe they've just got too much going on, I'll bring it up later. Well, maybe this is what they need in order to put things back together. And you don't know until you ask. And if they do say no, bring it up then down the road. You don't know when that right time is going to be. So as leaders, I just encourage offering parent-to-parent support to everyone. Like I just said, don't peg them as the family that, has made it to every appointment, so, they have no issues. I can tell you there are many appointments that I sat in and I just nodded my way through them until I got to the car and I could actually look up some of the things that they told me because I had no clue what they were saying. I needed somebody to tell me in actual English, not in college terms. So empowering parents, catch them being good, just like what we do with the 2-year-old, right? We want to encourage them on the things that they've done right so that they feel like they're actually accomplishing something and then, can move forward. Encouraging parents to be more. Lydia and I wouldn't be in these roles if we weren't encouraged at some point that, you know what, you have something to bring to the table. You have experience and I want to help you develop yourself. And for that, I'm grateful. Listening to parents, listening to professionals, trying not to jump in on that conversation. And then remember TINY, and TINY stands for their interests, not yours. So you might have an agenda set in mind when you're talking with that family, and you want to check off those things like, yep, I asked them about that. I've got Parent Institute covered. Okay, move on to the next thing. Maybe they have something else that they need to work through that day, and it's not your checklist. So make sure you leave enough time to figure out what their needs are before you go through what you need to discuss. And then overall, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. It's all in the mindset. So here is some of my contact information. We're going to go into the next screen and we'll have it down again. But I want to point out, if you have the opportunity to work with us with resources, in-kind donations financially, if you're interested in participating in one of our Guide by Your Side events, or maybe you have a training topic that you feel would be great for our team or for families, and again, referring a parent to us, then there's my contact information. You can follow our Illinois Hands and Voices Facebook page. That's the more active. We had a Guide by Your Side one, but it's not as active and managed as the Hands and Voices one. So I really defer to that. And then here we go is the information for Lydia and myself. Lydia?
Yes, again, thank you for listening. And I just kind of want to go back a little bit, Carrie, about what you said about the importance of listening, only because I have had many times when, like you say, we're checking in on the family, we're making sure, assuming all is well, but sometimes families need to vent. Sometimes moms are having a mom moment. And it's nice for our program as guides that we're just there to listen. Whether they just need to vent, whether they just need to complain or just have something to say, that's the nice thing, that's what we are there for. So listen is a big deal for us as well. And so families know that we are there for them in every sense of the way.
Yeah, and one of the things I always share with families is that your information or your discussions are safe with us. We're not going to be sitting around the dinner table that night and sharing the latest family that we've gotten and what they're struggling with. That is not our intention. We are there to provide you with whatever you need to move through the situation you're in, and to feel like you can be that parent that you always dreamt you wanted to be. And just because hearing loss is part of the picture now doesn't mean that you can't be that amazing parent that you knew you wanted to be. So it might just have some detours, but it's okay. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and